You'd think that everyone in the Democratic Party would agree on one thing, and that one thing is preventing a repeat of 2016. That overall election, and especially the tumultuous nature of the primaries, contained so much conflict between the establishment and the party's progressives that it would be insane to repeat the same mistakes. Except it appears that political operatives and the Democratic leadership are vying to bungle the presidential race again. In an article titled "Stop Sanders, Democrats Are Agonizing Over His Momentum," reporter Jonathan Martin describes the ways in which the Democratic establishment seeks to stand in the way of Senator Sanders winning the party's nomination. Now, to be clear, Biden does have a pretty significant lead over Bernie Sanders right now, but things, of course, could change. Now, these establishment Democrats, party leadership are getting together and coming up with a game plan to prevent Bernie from winning the nomination, all while munching on fancy hors d'oeuvres. Look, haven't we been here already? They've done that. There are far too many vulnerable people in the mix for the Democratic establishment to be poised to make the same mistakes twice. According to the Times, Democrats are increasingly worried that their effort to defeat President Trump in 2020 could be complicated by Sanders. How, some Democrats are beginning to ask, do they thwart a 70-something candidate from outside the party structure who is immune to intimidation or incentive that wields support from an unwavering base without simply reinforcing the establishment is out to get me message? What's interesting about this approach by the establishment is that they're convinced that Bernie would have no shot at beating Donald Trump, a man who ran on a populist message and pretended to care about the same economic frustrations and political corruption that Bernie Sanders actually does care about. The New York Times article also reports that Prospect is spooking establishment-aligned Democrats, some of whom are worried that his nomination could lure a third-party centrist into the field. And it is also creating tensions about what, if anything, should be done to halt Sanders. But if you look at polling, many of the policies that Bernie pushes for, including Medicare for All, are incredibly popular among voters in general. The Kaiser Family Foundation conducted a survey just last April that found that 56% of all voters across the political spectrum support a single-payer healthcare system. Only 38% oppose the legislation. The fact that Bernie tries to find solutions for the economic inequities that plague middle and working class Americans gives him a pretty good shot at beating Trump. Remember, in 2016, many Obama voters switched parties to vote for Trump because they felt the Democrats left them behind economically. Anyway, who attends these war room-esque anti-Bernie meetings the Times reported on? The gatherings have included scores from the moderate or center-left wing of the party, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the minority leader, former Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, himself a presidential candidate, and the president of the Center for American Progress, Neera Tanden, because of course. And of course, longtime Hillary Clinton backer and Democratic political operative David Brock is also very much part of these conversations. He was perhaps the harshest toward Bernie in 2016 and attacked the Vermont senator with lines like, quote, "It seems Black lives don't matter much to Bernie Sanders." What? Brock's attacks, I should say, were so aggressive that in January of 2017, he published an open letter to Bernie in an effort to apologize. Brock wrote, quote, "I'm with you in the fight ahead, and at times during the Democratic primary, I was criticized for being too aggressive in my support for Secretary Clinton, and rightly so. Looking back, I recognize that there were a few moments when my drive to put Hillary in the White House led me to take too stiff a jab. I owe up to that. I regret it, and I apologize to you and your supporters for it." Now, considering how Brock is back at it again and is strategizing to find ways to undermine Bernie, it seems his apology was disingenuous to say the least. There were giant consequences for Democrats following the primaries in the last election. Many Bernie voters stayed home, voted for a third-party candidate, or even voted for Trump following the WikiLeaks release of John Podesta's emails. Those internal Hillary camp messages contained all the confirmation progressives needed to prove that the party was in fact working against Bernie. It would be stupid for Democrats to make that same mistake again. And just in time, Democrats are banking on Trump fear-mongering to make their case. Former center-right Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill told The Times, quote, "One thing we have now that we didn't have in 2016 is the uniting force of Trump. There will be tremendous pressure on Bernie and his followers to fall in line because of what Trump represents." Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure. Insanity is the act of repeating the same mistake over and over while expecting a different result. The way Democrats are playing this is insane. And if they truly believe in democracy, they should stop trying to install candidates to their liking and listen to their voters instead. And look, to be fair, right now, their candidate of choice, Biden, has a pretty wide lead over Bernie. So let democracy play itself out. Stop trying to install candidates and do the right thing. Otherwise, any other action is undemocratic. Oh, you know you want to see more videos like this. Just subscribe to the channel below. And don't forget to become a TYT member and download the TYT Plus app on your phone. Head over to tyt.com/join today.